If you struggle with studying, don't worry, because as a PhD student, I spent 21 years of my life studying, and in this video, I will teach you how to study like a PhD student. I'm Aynur, a third-year PhD student in chemical engineering at Imperial College London, and I made it my mission to teach you every secret I know in academia video by video through all my social media channels. So today, we're going to tackle the topic all around how to self-study like a PhD student. We're going to start with the number one thing: thinking in systems. So as a PhD student, you master the art of breaking complex things down and give it a system and give it a structure so that you can tackle smaller pieces of things and reach the bigger end goal, right? So if you were to apply this to any subject that you want to study, this can be a language, it can be an art class, it can be studying for math, physics, chemistry, or whatever it is that you're studying right now. It all comes down to breaking this huge complex topic down in smaller pieces and fragments and then tackling them individually until by the end you'll understand everything. So if I were to apply this to one of my most recent learning curves, it's my machine learning project, okay? So I have very limited coding experience. I never did machine learning before. So this was like a huge learning curve for me. So how do you tackle this, okay? The first thing that you do is you find someone with expertise. In this case, was my lab partner. She's an expert in machine learning, and she gave me like the starting tools. She basically gave me some basic ground knowledge and led me towards the right direction. And this is super crucial. So for you, this means find yourself a teacher, a peer, just someone who knows a little bit more than you about this topic and can really save you time by telling you, okay, don't do these beginner mistakes, right? Then the second thing is you're going to think about what tools do I need. So in my case, I needed Python coding skills. I needed to know what machine learning framework and program I'm going to use. And then I needed to decide on how to implement all these things, right? So there are multiple learning curves here. And what you do here is, number one thing, I had to learn how to code in Python. So you can do this easily with ChatGPT, honestly. You can teach yourself anything with ChatGPT. So ChatGPT has been like my Python tutor in that sense, because if it's just learning how to code, it's easily done. Then in terms of like deciding which machine learning model to use, my friend in my research group, she was a huge help because she already knew, she listened to my research problem and she knew which model likely would make sense. So I could immediately read into that and start to slowly implement it into my code. And here is the important part. When I say slowly implement it into my code, I mean slowly implement it to my code. So you have to break that huge complex thing down into a very simple model. And first you have to make that simple thing work, and then you're going to add layer to layer to layer complexity to it. But what you're not going to do is try to fix that complex thing right from the scratch, because then you're going to get lost and frustrated and it's not going to work. The other way around, with this smaller system, you'll also feel a sense of accomplishment. Now, another big tip that I can give you as a PhD student is to try to teach your knowledge to other people, because the highest form of learning is teaching. So whenever you're able to teach something to other people, this means that you truly understood it. And if this just means teaching it to yourself in the mirror, because that's sometimes what I do. I know this sounds super freaky, but I just talk to myself and I'm like, hey, this is this and this and this. And like, I try to like teach myself, and then I automatically understand where my education gaps lie. So what didn't I understand? Because suddenly I'm like, I don't actually know how to explain this properly. And then this is where I have to like dig in deeper and try to get it. So try to teach either others or yourself the things that you have to study. And this way you learn whether you've really understood it or not. And then also the third tip is what variables are at play. So if you study for something, think about what are the things that influence this studying session, okay? Is it the time? Is it the setting? Is it the people? For example, Japanese class. Fatih and I will study Japanese, and it's always Monday evening. So the problem here is, because it's Monday evening, it's after work, and usually we're dead. Like, it's from 6 to 8, and already like when Japanese starts, my brain is dead. And then you have to like keep going and studying for 2 more hours. Now, I cannot shift Japanese class because that's fixed. It's a class. But what I can do is on Monday, start my day a bit earlier, stop working maybe 1 or 2 hours before Japanese class, go for a walk, have a break, have a coffee, just, calm down, maybe take a little nap, and then go to Japanese class. This is something that I could do to improve my learning. So for you, you have to think about what's limiting ability to study and how can you get the most out of your study session from that? How can you optimize it? Now, the other thing that you learn as a PhD student is to learn how to self-learn. So whereas in undergrad or masters, you'd get like these courseworks, assignments, homeworks to kind of walk you through the learning stages. In a PhD, it's just you have this problem and you need to solve it. And for that, you have to teach yourself new skills, new knowledge, but you don't have someone that teaches you that. You also don't have like a course plan or a lecture plan or a systemized approach to work all that out. It's just like learn machine learning, and then you have to learn how to do machine learning by yourself. So how do PhD students do that? First, as a PhD student, you learn how to use all these digital tools that you have, like things like PubMed, Google Scholar. Where can you get your literature? Really how to use your library effectively, the library resources at your university. Where can you get all that information? This is something that you learn. So for you, the task would be, how can you get the information that you need? Which sources are available? Have a Google search, think about it, and then you can start acquiring literature to teach yourself that stuff. Another thing that you learn is how to read effectively, like how to process all these dense information effectively, how to read academic papers effectively. I have a YouTube video on that actually, on how to read academic papers effectively. Check it out if this is something you're interested in. But these things are super valuable. So what PhD students do is they skim articles and then they first decide, is this useful or not useful? And if it's not useful, they discard it. And if it's useful, you go into a second read where you look a bit more into detail until you decide, okay, this is really useful, and then you're going to do the deep read. Now, another thing that's super important is for self-learning is to maintain organized records. This is so important, like not just like reading and understanding, but also keeping notes of the stuff that you learned for future reference, because as humans we just forget. That's in our nature. Every human being forgets, so we have to take notes of stuff that's important. For example, I use Notion for that. I have a Notion database. I did a YouTube video on this and how you can set up your own database, or you can just get my template, link is in the description, however you like, or use anything else. It does not even have to be Notion. There are so many note-taking softwares out there, but it's important that you take notes of your learnings and keep book so that you can read about it later on. So let's say you did all that, okay? You tried to teach yourself what you've learned. You took your notes, you acquired knowledge, got all that literature, sorted it, read it, and you broke your complex task down into simpler tasks, and you did all that. And still, it's not working. And this is also something that a PhD teaches you and that I want to pass down to you. Learning something new takes time, effort, but especially lots of failure. So especially if there is no one that breaks it down for you into bite-sized pieces, as it was in undergrad or your master's or in your school time, you are gonna fail. And it takes resilience to pick up that work again and again and again and try again and again and again. Just for example, my machine learning, it's driving me crazy. Like yesterday, I spent so many hours on fixing my code and it's not budging. It's not working. And then this morning, instead of recording YouTube videos, I was still like, I have to figure this out, and after 2 hours I was like, no, I have to cut it because I have to record my YouTube videos now. And it's Saturday, so it shouldn't even be PhD work day, right? But I just want to say progress is not linear, and especially things like this, they just take time. So building that resilience to just show up and consistently work on that, that's very important. And for example, this is also like with Japanese. Fatih and I, we started learning Japanese 1.5 years ago. The first year was terrible. It was so terrible. Like everything we learned, we forgot immediately, and it just felt like we made no progress at all, and it still felt like hieroglyphs and what are we even doing? And then the second year, all of a sudden, things started to fall into place, and it like a little bit of a sense for the Japanese language developed within us. So it takes time. Like we could have quit after 6 months or after a year, but we're still hanging in there. We're still trying, and over time we will learn how to speak Japanese, hopefully. Now there is one final thing that I want to touch on, and this is knowing when good enough is good enough. So having clear study goals. This is super important because everybody studies for a different reason. Some people study only to pass an exam. Some people study to get A grades in exam. For example, if we go back to the Japanese thing, I do not study Japanese to be fluent, best level, native Japanese speaker. I study Japanese to be able to communicate in Japanese with grammatical errors and pronunciation mistakes, but being able to like speak the language, understand it well enough to be able to like, you know, in everyday life, cope with it. That's my goal. So setting yourself this limit of how much work do I need to put in to be happy? Like, what's the study goal? When is good enough to like then pause it and move on to something else? And this is something that you do a lot in research, because in research you can always continue doing your research in science. It can always be better. But at some point, it's time to pull the plug and be like, okay, up until here and not further, because from there on, it's not going to add much value anymore if we keep on going. Or maybe it's just going to cost too much if we keep on going. All right, so these were like my main takeaways in these many years in academia that I've learned, especially also through my PhD journey, on how to study like a PhD student. I hope this video was helpful for you. I'm sending you lots of strength through your study journey, and I hope you can implement some of these things to your own journey as well. Other than that, if you liked this video, if it was any kind of help, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. And other than that, I hope you're doing well wherever you are, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye!